Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the rationalinvestor.co's, .com. Well, let it slip there. Our daily brief, action-packed episodes of all days, the middle of Thursday. Who would have thought a Thursday would be as crazy as it is? But nonetheless, here we are. We're back in the saddle. We got a pretty full room. We got the mayor of Vienna driving the bus. How's it going, sir?
Pretty good, Brian. How are you today?
Awesome. I see the mayor actually invested in a new Bob the Builder shirt. You want to show everybody Bob the Builder shirt? Look at that that's a damn fine shirt if I've ever seen one. Darn handsome. Oh, you got to lean back a little bit so we can see it. Anyway, I was joking with Alex before we started, but he even called it his Bob the Builder shirt. Adorable. Anyway, great to see you and great to see that you're driving the bus here. I feel full confidence when Alex is at the wheel. And as a special treat today, we've got the bear back in the house again. Good morning, Mr. Bear. How are you today?
I'm feeling bearish.
Oh, boy. I bet you're having a real fun time in this market. Oh, God. We got a lot to talk about in crypto land today, I suppose. I don't know whether we want to spend the whole broadcast. We should probably just an FYI to people. I always like to establish risk-free positions. So just an FYI right off the top of the top of the broadcast here. I took some profits on the NASDAQ short trade that I was working through the summer. And I was playing the NASDAQ trade through a derivative, which really did not make me feel good at all. Because whenever you play these derivatives, Thomas has been telling you guys that, in this kind of crazy ass markets, market makers might even just, pull bids and offers. And really, because if I was playing a derivative on a derivative, which means there really is no underlying market. You're at the whim of the market makers. And the NASDAQ this morning gapped open lower, but you can actually see we might even paint a green candle here this morning. I don't know. But we got down against these key lows here on the NASDAQ, and I had an open offer to sell two of my three. These were the call options on this derivative. I know it's a little screwy and it's hard to understand. But in essence, this asset will go up in price as Bitcoin, as the NASDAQ goes down in price. And we came up, gap violently higher. I had my offer sitting at 2 and change. The market makers just were not going to play with me. They were dancing all around me. And on the 38.2 tag, it was bid $1.80. So I just hit the bid for 2. So I've cleaned this position up. We booked a very small profit, a nice 20% return on the trade. And I've got a free position now basically through the end of March. So, if the stock market does want to fall out of bed, great. I'll just continue riding this. If we have to come back down, fill in these gaps, which I think is pretty likely, then, I'm more than happy to take a look at this trade again. But for the time being, I was getting a little antsy in this as the market was breaking. We often see there's blood in the streets, people are panicking, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, the market will jump back up and fill in these gaps up top. So just an FYI, and if anybody was doing that trade with me, basically I've established a free position here now on one of my options, and really I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to throw it on the back burner. Very similar to the way I traded this gold position. And I'm feeling pretty good about this trade right now. I'll just let this stew. Bought a 3 down here at $1, blew out 2. Not really the best fill price, but nonetheless, feeling pretty good here. Bought 3 for a total of about $200, blew out 2 for $200. And I got my free position, and we'll just see where the wind blows me here. So feeling pretty good about options this morning. And I'm feeling like maybe this is getting a little overdone here. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of counter trend rally here over the next week or two. As well, we've got the election coming up here. So, I know that, probably a lot of you haven't seen how markets act through elections. But usually, now of course, we've got a bit of a character running the United States government right now. But usually, through elections, they actually like to calm the market down. So we'll see how it goes. Long and short of it here, I just wanted to report to you guys that I've cleaned up this NASDAQ short trade, took a bit of profit, and I got a free position now. Other than that, I'm not really doing a heck of a lot else in the stock market. I did notice I got a fill on one of the VCIM stocks the other day. I'm totally happy with this, just sitting there, low share count, level where the options are long or where the directors are long. So I'm just perfectly fine just sitting in this little penny stock. But I did notice that two stocks that I am trying to bid on, they're actually moving up through this market, which kind of pisses me off. But I'll continue working those. And that's sort of what I'm doing in the stock market right at the moment. Mr. Bear, do you want to comment on the stock market before we get into crypto in earnest?
Yeah, hang on a second.
Oh, okay. Well, while you clear your throat and just take a minute, we don't need to rush. I'll just finish off with, I was very impressed, and hopefully he'll talk about this in a moment when he gets his wind. I was very impressed with Mr. Bear's connection of the gold market and the Chinese yuan. Yeah, this is what I wanted to see.
It wasn't me.
And I noticed that the yuan's, they're repricing it violently here this morning, and gold just took off like a fucking rocket here. So maybe when Mr. Bear's throat's clear, he can maybe tell us a little bit about what he's thinking here. And I don't know whether he got into a silver trade, but definitely, he gave everybody here a heads up yesterday morning about that silver trade. I haven't actually looked at silver myself, but is it rocking and rolling this morning too?
Yeah, it's up. It is. I have to check my broker to see if I actually got filled. I didn't. I was too caught up in crypto after the market closed. Actually, I was too caught up in a beer trade and a beer release to check if I was filled, and then crypto went crazy. Long story short, I don't even know if I'm in this position, but I appreciate the credit for the gold yuan peg, but that's not really an original idea by me. I got that from Macro Voices, and it actually makes sense because since I'm involved in the business for about the better part of 5 years, maybe more, we've been noticing that China has sort of been stockpiling gold for a long time. And there was an article that came out in July that was basically showing how China has acquired a bunch of key buildings throughout the United States. And these key buildings, surprise, surprise, are actually gold repositories. So China's definitely been positioning themselves to own gold and own gold aggressively. And the Macro Voices guys picked up on this even more so lately because that yuan gold peg has just been following itself very, very closely. And the fact is that we kind of based here and they eliminated the volatility on the gold market. And I think we popped up here about 12.18 the last I looked. Now we're 12.20 actually on gold. And I mean, you saw what happened when we broke out of the channel down here. Now we're kind of testing the upward objective of this channel. The question is, can we get a solid close either above or below that line with a decisive breakout? And until we do that, I think we're
pretty strong there.
Sure, it looks great, but I mean, I got to wait for these closes. I want to see tomorrow's action above that area. And I really just want to see this 38.2 tag come in already. I mean, the internals do look like they're kind of pushing upward. You've got OBV breaking out. You've got volume coming in on this XAU, but I don't really trust this volume chart here. But nonetheless, I mean, you can't deny the fact that all this news about this yuan gold peg is sort of a different paradigm for the gold market. For the longest time, the gold dollar inverse correlation was kind of what was driving this bus. And it still is to some degree. If you look here, the dollar did put in a high at the beginning of the week, and we were kind of just marching downward at this point, put in this market top, market structure top, and now we're reversing. So the question is, where could we essentially see this stop? And, typical fibs, probably around the 94 handle would be my guess. So that would kind of make sense below 78.6, and then it's like we're in real big trouble if we lose this 93 spot 81 handle. that wouldn't be so good here, because then it looks like we're kind of headed back down to the low 93s, and then it's kind of open air from there. But I don't really
see my head and shoulders. Remember this head and shoulders thesis I had for the longest time? I still think this is playing out here. So we just failed up at the what I would consider the right shoulder, and this would be painting to me a tag of sort of 93 area or so. Look at that juicy tail right down in there, eh? I don't know whether you can see that on my screen here. I love a nice little revisit down in against this juicy tail here. So yeah, looking a little toppy. And actually, it's interesting. This was a 2-to-1 setup off of this. It looks like it got stopped out. They did a nice little FU, and gee whiz, it's going to that 2-to-1. Right down to 50% level, eh?
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is and you know, this is a great part about sort of being a student of the market is, you know, you're never going to have the scenarios exactly the same way twice. This, you know, China spin on this on our sort of global system is fascinating to see play out. Nobody would have figured this to happen 20 years ago, that's for sure. So we can definitely say this time it's different, but ironically enough, human behavior is very similar. So, all right. So you're looking at the Dow here, sitting 25,000 area. So we've now officially corrected about what are we? I guess about somewhere between 5 and 10%. Eh?
Yeah. Isn't that much? Well,
I mean, I'll just let's see, calculator.
I think we're about 5 or so. But either way, I mean, it was interesting to watch yesterday. We were kind of flirting with 3 to 600 on the downside on the Dow, and then it's almost like clockwork from 10 years ago. I mean, I started the broadcast yesterday, and I was like, this feels very reminiscent of what happened 10 years ago. And really, what keeps happening with these big crashes is you see the market kind of test the very lows, make new lows into about the lunch hour. And then from about 12 to 2:30, it's like everybody goes to lunch. They're all talking. What are you thinking? You think this is a big crash? I don't know. Let's have a drink. I don't know. This might get bad. Everyone comes back from lunch. They're like, well, let's just see what's going on in the market. Are we really going to dump? Is this a big deal? And there's almost like this period from about 2:30 to 3:30 or 2:30 to 3 o'clock where there's this indecisiveness in the market where it kind of comes back a little, and then all of a sudden into the close, this thing just dumped and went down 800 points. And that was very, very reminiscent of what happened 10 years ago.
On your hourly chart, and really what you have to think about here is that the big fund managers, they move money around on buy on close and sell on close orders. So most of the institutional business, this is why we trade the New York kill zone. Most of the institutional business is done either within that first hour of the market opening or on the close. So you're absolutely right. And we see this in Japan all the time. What the interesting thing about Japan is that they have a very strict ritual. Like they actually close the stock market through their lunch hour. Everything stops. And they go and have their lunch. They make their decisions at the lunch meeting. And then they come back in the afternoon session and we see where the big boys really are planning on putting their money. So not really much difference, but in essence, that last hour of trading is where most of the big fund managers actually do their business. So, you know, excellent observation. Thomas is seeing this from a relatively new market participant perspective. Bull Brian broker guy's like, oh yeah, well that's business. That's the way. Blah, 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 blah. So I understand a lot of new people are like, wow, I never knew that. Journal it, very important information. But yeah, most institutions, they actually do their transactions on the either buy on close or sell on close orders. So there you go. Sorry to interrupt. Typical.
No more apologies. No more apologies for the rest of the show. Got it?
Oh, all right. Oh, I'm sorry for saying sorry so much.
Oh, you are a Canadian.
It's a Canadian in me, right?
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. Oh, did we just tag a moving average there? What's going on in your chart? I can't see what's going on down.
This is a 200 period moving average, I think, down here. This really small.
I watched the bank stocks just getting hammered this morning. Remember I told you about CIBC? I swear, guys, you want a great leading indicator. Look at this goddamn. Oh my God, how long did I go on about wanting to short the fucking Canadian banks? I hate when this happens.
Mike's been talking about that forever too. I wonder if he's cashing in right now. I haven't seen him around the site in a while. Mike, he used to do the RRSP group.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen him on the site too much. Have you guys seen him around? I haven't seen him around, but anyway.
I see him on Twitter every so often.
Yeah, say hi if you're around, Mike. But yeah, we talked lots about this, and any Canadians, for heaven's sakes, I've talked to you about this ad nauseum. Canadian real estate is the last place in the world I would have any money working. And I know a lot of you are like, oh my God, well, I just went and bought a house. Well, if you bought a house, everybody has to have a house to live in. And if you bought a house and you can make the mortgage payments, great. But Canada as a real estate investment, can you see that the Canadian real estate investment, that basically they're falling off a cliff here? This is going to have major ramifications to the Canadian real estate market. And I was very pleased with Mike. He said, look, I sold my house. I got out of the market about a year ago. And that's that. Hopefully he didn't go piling back in. But yeah, I mean, this chart speaks volumes, It's total face ripped down. The only problem is the options prices. The guys in Montreal totally froze me out of the trade, which pissed me off. But oh well, what can you do? Okay, what else are you seeing in American Airlines keeps forging to new lows, Jesus, what a train wreck.
And that's what you need to wait for. You need to see. I had a transport. That was the Dow transports chart versus the Dow transports are in blue. Dow is in red. I want to see some direction out of the transports, maybe to give us some relief or give us some kind of, sort of signal that the market's ready to bounce. But I mean, at this point, you've come off so far so quickly. Just a quick snapback would make sense. Dow was off almost 372 points today, and now it's sitting around -40 or so. So, I mean, it's going to be an up and down day. The question is, if we continue to sell off into today and tomorrow, what does this really mean for the bigger picture here? And, nobody knows the answer to that just yet and how well the funds are positioning themselves. But nonetheless.
Well, that's a good dovetail. I like how we segued. So probably not a bad idea for us to take a look at our first 2-week study here. And whoops, I gotta on the right damn screen. Hold on a second here, guys. Remember, I'm not like the most computer savvy guy, so I apologize if I screw this up, but I'm trying to get my study here to cooperate. First 2 weeks of the quarter. What do you think, guys? Is there money going into any particular area of the market right now? I think money's going into the utilities. So the question ultimately is, okay, well, if money's going into the utilities, where does that mean we are in sort of the economic cycle? And if money's going into the utilities, that means we're right about here. So it's interesting how the stock market, basically in red, has already broken. Unfortunately, the people in the public, they're seeing sort of the economy doing really, really well, but they don't realize we're right at the very top of the curve here, And just sort of an aside, so I think we get a pretty clear message from the fund managers where they think the market is. I think we're somewhere up in this area right here. We're shorting the stock indexes and making money on the downside. Big surprise. That's basically what you're supposed to do right here. Lots of puts and stuff doing well. I guess the other part of that conversation, which I know people on the site, it's a bit tough, but I was trying to explain this to a level oneer yesterday. I'm not going to say it's easy. I mean, geez, it might take like your whole life to sort of wrap your head around all this. But yield curve, it's interesting to see. You can see the double topped in yields here. But at the same time, the curve itself longer dated maturities are yielding higher than shorter dated maturities. So I don't think we have a yield curve inversion here right now. I don't think we're in worry of a recession. I think if anything, this is just a normal stock market pullback. I find it hilarious that Mr. Trump goes, in a press release, I think it was yesterday, late yesterday, he was like, oh yeah, we were all expecting this correction. This was what everybody was expecting. And it's like, what? Come on. Just a week ago, you were in front of the United Nations going, oh, look how wealthy we are. Look how high our stock market is, right? And then basing our wealth. Now he changes his tune and says, well, actually, everybody was expecting this 800-point drop. Well, I don't know what the fuck to make out of that. But me personally, I'm still looking at this like it's just a correction rather than the market going into recession. And if anything, this is, this I think probably is the most important chart for us all to keep an eye on here. And that is, have we transitioned back into a world of inflation rather than living in a world of deflation? And, maybe the gold market is seeing this as well and saying, holy shit, we got to play catch up here. One thing that did jump out at me when I looked at this overnight is you can see that the corporate interest rate market, and I was trying to explain this to a level oneer yesterday. I know it's extremely difficult. The people that run the show don't make this easy. But in essence, we used to play this thing called the T-bills futures, right? Which is just treasury bills, 90-day paper, short-term interest rate proxy. The treasury went and blew itself up in the States. So the central bankers through the Federal Reserve Board had to sort of take over the system. And now we use what's called the Fed fund futures to measure short-term interest rates. The T-bill market doesn't really exist for the Joe Sixpack public anymore. And primarily the public is using the euro dollar market as its proxy. Now, this is kind of tough for level oneers. You go euro currency, euro dollar, they're the same thing. No, they aren't. They're actually completely different. So euro currency, that would be sort of like, what is the currency unit? If we're going to find one, here it is. This is the euro currency, which you use as your currency proxy in a big chunk of Europe. This is the euro dollar market, or basically corporate short-term interest rate market. Very different. And if you have to write that down in your journals, what did I learn today? That's not a bad thing to try and get down. So the point of the matter here is, this used to be called the TED spread, and it was just simply the difference between guaranteed U.S. government short-term paper, 90-day paper, and corporate 90-day paper. And we all remember GMAC, right? Does anybody remember GMAC? It was we used to make a joke back 10, 15 years ago that there was this company called General Motors, which had a great business, GMAC, and then they had this funny little side business on the side that was a bit irritating and a bit distracting, but it was in the business of selling cars. So 2007, 2008 comes along, kaboom! The euro dollar market blows up. GMAC, think of GMAC. This is 2007, and that is that problem. And you know that there's a seizing up of the credit market, GMAC, right? Think of that paper, when the spread between the government guaranteed paper, T-bills in previous generations, now Fed funds rates, and the euro dollar market, the spread goes above 1.0. So I thought it was really interesting that, the market started to seize up here back last winter. And you saw how the stock market came off last winter. So it was concerned about this. Then things sort of calmed down. The Fed sort of got back in front of the curve and cleaned this up. But lo and behold, notice this spread is now put in a W here. So I think this is also one of the drivers of the recent stock market sell-off, is that the market is worried that the credit market is starting to seize up again. So I think our worry right now is less of recession and more of credit crisis conversation. That might take a while for people to sort of wrap their heads around, but that's sort of my take on what's going on in the market right now, what's driving this. It's more a credit spread crisis rather than a full-blown recession. Now, if this gets out of control and people start piling into bonds and getting the hell out of stocks and stocks continue to tank, then you'll see these spreads start to narrow and actually invert. Then we start talking about yield curve inversion. And now we're starting to talk about recession, and this long bull run that we've been on for the past 10 years will be done. But that's not the case today. Today, I think it's all about credit crisis right now.
So what happens if bonds and stocks sell off at the same time for this spread?
Well, keep in mind that this is short-term interest rates. And actually, this exact same question somebody was asking last night. They were saying, well, shouldn't the euro dollar and the Fed funds rates markets, if everybody is panicking and piling into these short-term paper instruments, shouldn't they be going up in price? Shouldn't yields be going down? And the simple fact of the matter is that we can have environments where interest rates are going up, bond prices are going down, and stocks are going down at the same time. There's nothing out of the ordinary with that. The only problem is that probably none of you guys have ever lived or traded through that kind of environment. Remember, we've been in a falling interest rate environment now since 1982. Have any of you been trading since before 1982? So, ironically enough, we actually have a new paradigm shift, and that's what this conversation is all about. Is we're finally starting to turn the corner here. And we actually have to get used to now, and it sucks, guys. I mean, basically, it's the next 35 years of our lives of a rising interest rate market world. Very different than the world that we've lived in for the past 20, 30 years. So it's not an easy question to answer. Don't get me wrong. Not easy whatsoever. Now, what I think you're probably going to see, and notice these M's on all these are all the yields. So that means bond prices are the inverse of what you see here. So what this means is if we pull up the TLTs, instead of Brian going and buying his damn calls at the end of the summer and not following his TRI SOF, right, like an idiot, now is when we should be taking a real good look at buying our bond calls. And, it's tough to see off of this, but if we change that to a line chart, can you see the little W trying to come in here now? So it's not really that well defined here off of this TLT instrument, but I think you're starting to see the signs. As the stock market breaks, the bond ghouls will get a little bit happier, and which means that they'll put bottoms in prices. People will start going, oh, okay, maybe I'm going to get out of stocks and I'll allocate a bit more to bonds, and you'll start to see these prices rise. If we see them rise enough where the yields actually start inverting, then we know that, okay, people are really worried about growth. We better get ready for a recession. Does that help answer that question? It's not an easy question to answer, dude. That's a tough question.
Love it.
Okay, so I totally derailed us. I'm sorry, guys, but maybe a little bit of Econ 101 there for your morning. Okay, shall we make the big transition? Are we done talking stock market?
Yeah, sure. We're halfway through, so let's move on over.
All right. I'll just finish off stock market commentary. A little bit surprised that my Calixia, the Potcoin / blockchain stock, still holding a bid, but I did see some of the other crypto names. This DPW's kind of gotten beat up here a little bit, and I haven't gotten filled on my iMining yet, but I still got a bid working. You can see it's still heavy. So my stock market proxies for crypto, kind of wishy-washy right now. And clearly not a bad idea to hop off on that DPW. I hope you all took that cue with me. So stock market, crypto proxies, looking a little wishy-washy. Now, I think something happened in crypto yesterday afternoon. Does anybody want to fill me in on what the fuck happened? Thomas? What the hell happened in crypto yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, it's really anyone's guess as to why this really fell out of bed. I mean, we kind of saw it coming yesterday with our short setups on Bitcoin and Litecoin, but and Ethereum. But I mean, as far as a fundamental driver, I mean, you could pick anything at this point. Someone was in the lounge joking around that the Roger Ver and the Litecoin guys debate was what caused it. You know, I think was a joke.
I could have sworn I watched that debate like a week or two ago. That doesn't.
Yeah, I think it was old. I think it was a joke. And then
I got the impression that this was all about Phoenix and Phoenix losing its banking license. And I think you were telling us about that yesterday, weren't you?
Yeah, so there's another thing going on with Phoenix. Someone had an interesting hypothesis last night in the lounge that essentially what happened was all the Wall Street guys were pissed off that they got crushed yesterday, so they decided to take out their frustration on the crypto market and just, dumped all over the place on the kiddies. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it was certainly amusing to think about nonetheless.
Brian makes a good point here. And I apologize. I'll try and make this as quick as possible. There's an old saying in the market, if you can't sell what you want to sell, you sell what you can sell. So if people are getting absolutely destroyed in the stock market, margin calls right, left, and center, and they just so happen to have some crypto on the books, they might have just said, fuck it, I got to raise cash, blow that shit out. I've seen that happen tons of times. So Brian M., actually you make a really good point there. Some of the selling that we've seen in crypto here might not even be related to crypto. It just might be like, holy shit, we got to raise money, sell anything you can.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point too. Get rid of the stuff on the book, sure. The other idea was that there's a couple of Bitcoin whales that moved roughly 22,000 Bitcoin and potentially into an unknown wallet address. I didn't do any analysis on this. I don't think that I'd be able to conclude anything better than what these outlets were able to figure out, and that a whole bunch of coins moved at a certain time, and that looks like it was, whatever 158 UTC time is. And it looks like they moved them into an OTC order. Maybe they were buying, as the wallet is new, no old transactions. If this was transacted to an exchange, then it would have dumped. I don't really think anyone can reasonably conclude one way or another. I mean, here's a bunch of chain analysis stuff. I actually am really interested in this now. But maybe this has something to do with it. Maybe the whales are just kind of splashing around trying to get one last chance at getting cheap coins. Because really what I think is, and I've been saying this for the last couple of days, there were way too many freaking people who were like, Bitcoin stability is a welcome change. This means that there's a paradigm shift and Bitcoin's about to rally. Well, we kept saying if too many people are on one side of the bus or one side of the boat, guess what happens? And this is kind of what happened. Price just kind of dumped. And I'll get into more of the trades, the order books. A lot of crap went on last night. It was a real crazy day trading-wise for me late last night. But I want to quickly go through this news before we hit into that stuff, because I think there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And that includes the Finex news that Brian was talking about and that we've been mentioning last week, and that Finex is having issues, or Tether, I guess, is having issues, same thing, right, with their peg to the US dollar, and essentially lost about $8. I think it went as low as $93 and then came back up again. But Finex has been having issues keeping that cat in the bag. In addition, yesterday I found some article that had a whole bunch of sound recordings from a bunch of upper-level management that were up to no good. And while that article seemed outdated, it just seems strange timing that I happened to stumble upon that yesterday. And then today, we see Finex is suspending fiat deposits, and they're claiming they expect to resume them within a week. Now, while on the surface, you'd think, oh my God, this seems like another Mt. Gox. This exchange is about to collapse. But really, what they're doing here is suspending deposits. So what that means to me is they're switching banks, right? So they don't, whoever was processing their fiat on-ramps, and I think it was HSBC, where they were supposed to shift to HSBC. Maybe they're in the process of doing that. That's my personal opinion on this. I think that they're just getting everything in order here to accept new fiat deposits. Now, I don't personally trade on Finex. I don't like the way they run their business. I don't like anything about Finex or the people behind them. I think they're very shady, so buyer beware. Of course, Finex has been around for a long time. I think they have really, really unique relationships with very influential people. So there might be some reasoning behind why they haven't been publicly investigated, or why their exchange hasn't collapsed yet. So
And really,
I don't think,
I think if you're talking Phoenix, we're really talking about one gentleman. That's,
yeah.
in my opinion, Simon Dixon.
Mm-hmm.
So I did see him on Twitter getting a little defensive this morning. So I would imagine a lot of people are, excuse me, Mr. Dixon, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
So as well, too, I see a couple people posted that our buddy Christine Lagarde, and she's a character, eh? Anyway, she's come out. I think they had a big. I was watching. They had a big IMF meeting. I think it was like in Bali or something like that. What a tough life, right? Somebody just posted in the launch here. IMF issues stark warning over Bitcoin and crypto's rapid growth.
No new news.
That to me seems like total FUD.
Yeah, totally.
But I will say that I was a little bit surprised at how thin the order book is getting for Tether on sites like Trex. I noticed that they're holding the peg pretty well on Finex itself, but I see some of the other exchanges that hold this Tether. The order books are getting very, very thin.
I think people just want an excuse to jump off Tether. If any bad news comes, I would almost certainly expect everyone to just be like, all right, enough is enough. We're finished here, and just see Tether collapse. I think it's closer to an end than it is to
I noticed yesterday what was really interesting was this True USD as sort of another one of these stable coins. It is just rocking it here now. So I did see on Trex a lot of money moves from Tether into this True USD. So they're not even going into cash on Trex. They're just moving from one quote unquote stable coin to another quote unquote stable coin. So try and figure that one out. I think if anything, this gold chart just looks stunning. Probably my best investment over 2018 is going to be when I sold a whack of Bitcoin and bought a whole shitload of gold on Vault, right? This chart just looks, regardless of Tether, this chart just looks phenomenal. I mean, this thing looks like it's about to launch here. So, go figure. I like to spread the jelly. So, got a whack in this gold. Yes, I still do have a bid in this Tether. And I know people were scolding me. What are you still doing in that piece of shit? Right? But I'm just diversified. I've got a whack of US dollars, got a whack of gold, got a whack of Tether. I'm actually thinking about just moving some of this Tether over into this True USD just to spread the jelly out a little bit more. I've got, I think, about 60 or some odd thousand in just US cash sitting on Trex. I don't know what the ultimate outcome of this Tether instrument is, but I can clearly understand there is a lot of uncertainty around this thing. And of course, Mr. Bear, if you want a positive, happy, upbeat comment on Tether, ask Mr. Bear. Not.
Yeah, everyone knows how I feel about that trash. Well, if you don't like Tether, you can always go to OKCoin. They're going to launch their own stable coin. Kind of, we were saying yesterday. People's Bank of China wanted to launch their own.
Somebody did the casino crash last night?
Yeah, I'll get into it.
Okay. So everybody keep in mind, it's and what I've personally found, like, didn't Stamp come under attack like over the last weekend or something?
That was just a bot gone wrong.
Okay, so it's hilarious to watch this, and if you're new to crypto, get used to this. It's almost like we jump from one exchange to another exchange. who's in the shit box, the penalty box this week. So do you want to tell, I derailed you a little bit. Do you want to get into okay stuff, or did you want to talk about something else first?
Yeah, I just want to run through these articles before we jump in there. I won't take too much more time. This is just a simple statement that OKCoin is launching their own stable coin, kind of like the People's Bank of China came out with their research report, which was commented on yesterday, that they want their own state-sponsored stablecoin, and OKCoin and Star, the guy who runs OKCoin, has basically said, okay, we're going to make one. So there you go. That's that news. And then interestingly, I forget who was in the lounge yesterday, but someone came in, they're like, oh shit, I had all this money in one broker and I can't get it out. I think it was a longtime vet. I hope he's watching this, because it looks like they're going to start processing withdrawals again in the next couple days, pending after this SEC investigation. So people are going to be able to get their money out. So that's good news for anyone who kind of was a little too late to the party or didn't find the workaround that someone else had found. I think it was Tom from the UK found a workaround by using the app, which was connecting to their server through a different DNS address that the SEC hadn't shut down. So if you do have money on one broker, I think you can probably sleep pretty well tonight, because it looks like they're going to start processing these withdrawals. So that's great news. Next piece of news here is that this guy, Dr. Doom, who you commonly see on CNBC, who's famous for predicting the 2007-2008 housing bubble crash, he's going to be going in front of the U.S. Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, and he is devoted to exploring cryptocurrency and the blockchain ecosystem. So he's going to testify in counterpart to Coin Center's director, Peter Van Valkenburg. If you've ever seen that guy, he's very well spoken. He's commonly appeared in front of multiple government bodies. It is. So I think he's testifying. I
saw somebody post in the lounge a link to that. I think it was Gabby. Yeah, Gabby posted Bloomberg Live, U.S. Senate hearing on crypto and blockchain ecosystem. So I think that's actually going on right now.
Oh, that's right. It was Da Vinci. Da Vinci popped into the lounge. All right, Dav, I hope you're watching. Happy birthday. Yeah, so Dr. Doom's coming in front of the Senate, in front of this banking committee, and he's going to talk shit about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. He used the word shit coins and had to apologize for using such terrible language, but he said that, hey, there's 500,000 hits on Google for it, so it's a real thing. So I don't know. I think he's arguing against cryptocurrencies from what I got from this article. I don't know, what else his agenda is here and why he needs to do that. But whatever, it is what it is. If you want to watch it, might be entertaining, might be a waste of your time. I don't think this is going to move price much unless the Senate comes out and goes, well, we really like Bitcoin and we want to switch the US dollar to it. Then that would be quite the news. But I don't think that's going to happen. That would be hilarious. This is bullshit news. I don't need to cover this. So should we jump into technicals? Do you want to?
Can you just tell me what happened on OK last night?
Yeah, sure. So oh man, where did this start? So I guess what happened, the real issues for me was I had trades open short on both Bitcoin and and Ethereum. And Bitcoin took a huge dump, as we all see. And essentially what happened was the market collapsed. You had a lot of margin calls, cascading margin calls. So what happens is when one person has a trigger order to set their stop, they set their order just a little bit lower than where the price is. And if a whole bunch of margin calls come in and then a whole bunch of trigger orders come in lower than that, those start cascading the price lower and lower and pushing it to the point where there's just so much margin call, so much action to the downside that this whole thing just kind of, the exchange slows down. I don't think they can process the amount of volatility. I mean, it sounds surprising, and it shocks me too, right? OKCoin's been around for 4 or 5 years now, and they've been through periods of volatility like this. You would think they'd have something like this fixed. Well, they did for Bitcoin. It actually worked really well. I was able to get out of my position without much of a problem on Bitcoin. I had my targets hit. It was, full disclosure, it was probably one of my best trades of the last couple months. But the problem was Ethereum. Ethereum, I don't know if they didn't upgrade the servers in the same way, or if there's just more liquidity trading these contracts. But what happened was you had this huge cascade downward. There was that margin call issue that I talked about just now. And I have a screenshot that I'm going to try to find real quickly that showed all of these margin calls. And it was like hundreds of thousands of contracts, like tons and tons and tons of these contracts. And I'm sitting in the lounge while the prices just stopped at 206 something or other. And from about, I don't know, call it 9:15 to about 9:45, price was just frozen, would not budge at all. All the other markets were continuing to go down. And I was furious. I had a huge position on. I could not close the damn thing out. I couldn't enter orders. I couldn't cancel orders. Everything was screwed up. I went into their Telegram channel, and let me see if I can find this because it's actually really hilarious. I go in their Telegram channel and I ask them, "Hey guys, what's going on with your exchange right now? I can't do anything. I'm totally locked out." And the guy's like, "Hold on, let me check." And there was only one other guy in there that's like, "Is there something wrong with your futures contracts right now?" And I'm just thinking, how is this possible? How is nobody else in their channel freaking out? I went on Twitter. Very few people are on Twitter. Like, who's really trading these contracts, and why are more people not concerned? And the reason I think people weren't concerned is because they all got trapped on the long side, and they just all got margin called, and they didn't have shorts open. It was just really incredible to see the lack of interest. So here's kind of a screenshot. I'm in their channel. I'm asking them if there's any updates on this thing. And I asked, the guy goes, "What are you talking about with these liquidations? Is that we're trying to check what's going on." So I said, "Any updates?" And he goes, "Either a lot of contracts were just liquidated or something else happened. I'm waiting on the tech team for an update." So I said, "There's tons of liquidations, but you guys don't have circuit breakers. Circuit breakers are installed in the stock market when you have a big drop to kind of keep everyone from freaking out. They pause the market for a while, and then they resume trading again." This guy had no idea. He goes, "Don't understand that last part. Circuit breakers? You mean like a system that stops trading when the market is being manipulated?" Like, I face palmed so hard when I saw that. And the guy doesn't, there's this exchange. Clearly, he's just, he's the admin. He's
he's
the
some
service
guy
rep.
on the desk, right? Yeah. And what time is it in China?
I think it was like 8 a.m. or something.
Yeah, so he's like the overnight guy. "Hey, I just got out of college. I could barely speak English."
I mean, I know that guy. I've had issues. I've chatted back and forth with him for about a year now. So he's not new to the program. But the point is, I guess he's just kind of the, what do you call it? The customer service rep who doesn't really know much about trading, which is sad, right? You should have somebody on the desk who can can take these complaints. They don't really, I didn't even bother going through their live chat on the site because it was so slow and buggy. But I mean, for accounts that are trading, they should have a dedicated support team for certain accounts. It wasn't fun last night. And eventually what happened was they resumed trading at 9:45, and any orders that you put in while the market was frozen, they ended up fulfilling themselves. So, while I'm trying to change my orders, they ended up filling the one that I entered while everything was frozen. So I ended up getting less of a better, not as good as a fill as my original order had been. So it's kind of
Lucky they didn't dupe the order, though, man. Imagine if you put in like, "Sell, sell, sell, sell. Holy shit, now I'm short 1 million Bitcoins. What the fuck?"
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that happened to a lot of people too. They probably went short around there. But I mean, if you did go short in the 206 area, you actually got a pretty good fill. And
that's ETH you're talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, I was talking about ETH. So essentially, they resumed trading.
And I didn't know, and I was even going to put it out on Twitter because when I saw you kind of getting stressed there last night, I was wondering whether this was cascading over to OKCoin. So what I'm hearing is not really that big of an issue. They're not really even in the spotlight right now.
Yeah, they fixed everything, but then their exchange went down again. I mean, the Ethereum contract went down again at like 2, 3 in the morning. So that was their second time. They just need to get their shit together. There's really no reason why they can't have a functioning exchange that shouldn't freeze. So it is what it is, right? So
I thought it
can't
was
bring this
really
up.
interesting when I looked at MEX last night and I was looking for why markets moved to where they did. And I posted this in the lounge and I was just shocked. Look at, if you just draw just a simple connect the dots off of this low and this low, look where MEX stopped last night. And that's ridiculous. So I don't know. I'm wondering whether half of this was just manufactured. It feels like something just doesn't smell right about all this, but I don't know. Only time will tell. You know, off of the higher time frames, actually, ironically enough, the more I look at this, like if we now, you know, if Phoenix has shit the bed and all hell's breaking loose, well, maybe there is bigger problems. But do you guys see how all they did was, you know, you hear Brian squawking about, oh, I love candle body lows as trade levels. I mean, look at this. I mean, right against those candle body lows, that's where the market stopped last night on a dime. So I don't know whether this is the start of a new bear here or not, or whether they just backed it up into a buying window. I did see some people were like, all right, so they dumped it, they broke it, and they couldn't even get it below 6,000? What the fuck? So I don't know. I mean, I'm still on the fence. Ironically enough, based on my weekly analysis, remember this diamond pattern that we talked about the other day. We've come down against these tails. We've broken the diamond. So clearly the bears, you know, charging along here and driving the bus. But we're now into tails, and it'll be really interesting to see if the price can stabilize here. Certainly don't have any buy signals right now, that's for sure. But I don't know. Do you think we're coming down into a support level, or are you looking for more down here?
I'm actually pretty shocked that the 4-hour candle into the dump last night ended up closing above a support level. This orange line is a long-term support level that I've had. Moreover, if you look at, and let me make this full screen so everyone can see, look at the last run-up from just under 5,700 or around 5,750 up to 7,390. This is our range here. We're still flirting with that reload zone at 78.6. And yeah, this tail went all the way down here. I think that the reason why OKCoin went all the way down there, and I haven't looked at the other exchanges to see what these tails look like. I firmly believe the reason why we went this low was just a whole bunch of cascading margin calls. I don't think that there was real shorting interest down here. I mean, if I could get a volume profile down there, I would assume that it's not very strong for business.
Throw on session profile, and you might actually see it. Might have even created a Jesse James, eh? It's totally possible.
Let's see. Is this going to give me? Yeah, here we go. And where'd it go? Oh, it's really tiny. Look, can we see? Yeah, look at this. You can't even see it.
Yeah, it's just all single ticks, eh?
Yeah, so that's the 4.
What's interesting too, like you have that horizontal level on your charts. For the level 2ers, they just did horizontal support and resistance. So I hope all their charts look like mine right now. But there is that big weekly level that you were talking about, really important level. And I noticed the market is just, I actually think that if we can recapture above that important support line that you just talked about there, this is going to become a non-event. This is actually a huge battle level right here. This really important line you have on your chart. Really important.
Wait,
all right, go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Wait, I just got something really crazy. There's a bill that's being introduced to Congress about shifting the dollar back to gold. Is this real? No, this is back from March 22nd. Okay, forget it. Old news. All right, so back to Bitcoin. I was checking the Bitfinex chart to see, and Stamp, to see where these tails ended up, just to see if that is a product of just like futures margin call cascade. And it sure does look like we don't have crazy tails like we do on OKCoin. So this is Finex on the hourly. Let's see, 4 hour. But I mean, my personal opinion here, I think that this just makes sense. We're coming into a level, and hey, look at Finex, and it's same fib reload zone. This is our range. We're actually right at 78.6. I think it just makes perfect sense. There were too many people long up here. They needed to break the market. Maybe someone was interested in reloading down here. people picked up what they would consider cheap Bitcoin into this reload zone, and maybe they're positioning themselves long. I think it's a little early to call bottoms and that we're not done going down yet, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, this 4-hour setup came in across all these exchanges. I mean, you had this double top, you had this huge crush down here, which actually was front run on the hourly. You had this double top come in here, and then this whole thing was validated here, and that all happened very quickly. You had to be very light on your toes and prepared for that to happen. But are we really that surprised by the way this happened? Because the 4-hour already had this double top in place. We dumped, but then that was into what? Yesterday. So yesterday night, this was the dump. And then we came back up, tagged the neckline, and hey guys, check out the internals of this market. Remember we were talking about that divergence? That was in play. So I mean, this setup was there. I talked about it on the show yesterday. I mean, it was perfect. We saw it coming from a mile away. So
that's why you're the man, dude. You're the fucking man.
I just hope it helped people, right? That's why we're here. That's what we're doing this for. We really want people to pick up on this stuff. We want you guys to be successful, be great traders, to understand that, you know, you're going to be seeing the market differently than the guy who's on Twitter tweeting at Brian that TA doesn't work. So screw him. But that setup came in very nicely and very orderly, just like our S&P top did. And sometimes they end up paying out nicely. And to me, it looks like that move has played itself out, and MACD is starting to come up a little bit here. I think we've got a lot of work to do. This is a 4-hour chart, so if this thing's going to bottom, you're going to need at least 4 more candles here. So that's another 12 hours into overnight hours. Let's just check the daily and see what kind of damage we did. The daily put in its top. Thing is, we don't have any internals to drive the market much lower. See what volume looks like. Volume's kind of breaking out a little bit to the, but it's not quite recapturing this dump here. So I'd like to see that happen if we're really going to continue moving lower. I think we're kind of in range still. Until we break that range and we break below $6,000, really, is this a big deal? I mean, on first glance, it looks like it does. And this top is firmly in place, but I don't see divergence. I don't see any other internal reasons. I mean, I just see sideways, and that's just me. I mean, for all I know, this thing in the next hour could just dump below $6,000. And, you know, that's just because I think the market's just trying to find its footing. And this is a wait and see. This is totally hands off for me. I'm, you know, after I take a big trade, I was commenting in the lounge, I have trade tile dysfunction. I just can't take another trade because after a big one comes in, you're kind of a little dazed, right? You don't really know the direction of the market, and you'd be almost knife catching if you took the opposite trade. I mean, sure, buying into a reload zone makes sense, but not after something like that. If you bought this tail, you've got big cojones. So good for you if you did that. So that's really all I can offer from a technical perspective as to what to do. I mean, I can't do anything, right? You need to wait for this market to base. You need to wait for it to reestablish itself. It's kind of like, you know, Brian and I were joking about on Monday with the fight that happened over the weekend. This market just kind of got knocked out for a little bit, and it needs to pick itself back up. And maybe whoever knocked this out, something was a little hot, if you know what I mean.
All right. I thought it was kind of interesting. The guys on the YouTube page were joking that which coin was it that Yobit pumped? Because now they're getting into the pump business. And they were saying, Benjamin saying, nice to see you again, Benjamin. They were saying it was Putin coin. How appropriate, eh?
Oh my God.
If you want to kiss ass, right? Which coin do you pump? Pump the Putin coin. It's almost cliche. And now there's no fucking way they're gonna go out of business. Putin, they just they're totally kissing the leader's ass, right? So now they've got basically a green light from him. So excellent observation, guys, over on the YouTube chat. That was hilarious. Okay, so that's the top of the hour. Yeah, I think probably a little bit early for us to quote unquote call bottoms. I sort of put out a tweet last night sort of saying that, yeah, it looks like the bears back in control, and those that took range shorts off the top, they just got paid. Way to go. The great part about it is we've got a gentleman here who almost on a daily basis, if TRI can afford him, is going to simply give you these levels. He's such a great trader, guys. We are all so fortunate to have Thomas here with us. So thank you very much, sir. Excellent work as always. I don't know, Mr. Habsburg, is there anything that we should have talked about today that we missed, or do you think we covered? Think we gave these people good value for their time?
Yeah, I think you covered it. You covered it pretty well there.
Okay, Thomas, is there anything else you wanted? I mean, you covered basically everything under the sun. Was there anything else you wanted to add today, or shall we call it a day?
Just one more. Gonna keep reminding people I'll be in New York City next weekend. I got a couple people.
Benjamin, that's for you.
I actually talked to him. I think we're gonna meet up.
Good, because you two have been around the site forever. You should be like bosom buddies.
So if anyone else wants to join, you're more than welcome. We'd love to have you. So drop a line to me.
Totally. Okay, so big shout out there. Albert, I don't know whether Albert's here today or not, but if he has any sort of marketing requests, by all means, we'll watch out for anything he has to say. Alex, doing the TA for the level 1 program. So proud of the hard work they're all doing. Grim, of course, rocking it. I feel very confident. And like I was in that level 1 room last night, I'll pop in there every once in a while and try and help answer questions. So I feel really positive. We had a great session for the level 3ers yesterday. All of them are working diligently on their trader checklists and getting their day trading and swing trading programs going. So way to go, guys. Greg, were you the one that was chatting with Thomas in the day trading room the other day? Is that the Greg that you were referring to?
Greg O, I think it was.
I don't know. I do see one of our longtime vets, Greg, is here. So if that was you, great. Just wanted to give you a shout out. So, all right. I think on balance, we have a pretty good summary of the market here for you guys. So thank you very much for everybody participating. Oh, that's a different Greg. Okay. Any questions, feel free to reach out. This is a challenging time in the market. I ain't going to sugarcoat this. You can see what the broader economy is doing. Let's all just keep our heads straight. Make sure to try and get yourself into risk-free positions as fast as possible. I'll tell you, me personally, I feel a little less anxious now that I've blown out that NASDAQ trade and I've just got a nice free position there. So it just makes playing this game a heck of a lot easier. Let's keep an eye out. Really, I really like watching on OKCoin. Like I said, this key level, it looks like it's saying 6160, 6170, somewhere in there. If OKCoin can get its butt back above there, then I'm feeling a little bit more positive. Until then, I think we're just still in wait and see mode. So, okay, why don't we leave it at that? Have yourselves a great day, everybody. All the best. And Mr. Habsburg, if you want to take us out of here, the only thing left out of good old Brian is a big bye for now.